All right, this is the 26th of October, and I'd like to call the meeting to order. The first item we have is the approval of the agenda. Does anyone have any additions?
No.
No. Okay. We've been reading the minutes. Do you have any corrections or additions? Would you like to move to accept the minutes?
I move to accept the minutes as they are.
I'll second them even though I wasn't here.
Neither was there. Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Are there any public comments from the public? All right. Next thing is a report from the CPOA.
Okay, so where shall we begin? Did everyone receive a copy of the redacted
Yes.
draft of the report? Yeah, that's what I was provided through APD from Bill Slauson after it was distributed. So I contacted Elizabeth Martinez and Dan, and then Dan Giaquinto from the monitoring team followed up with me to find out why we weren't on the initial distribution of the draft that would enable us to comment on and be able to respond prior to the draft becoming the permanent report, which APD and all the stakeholders have an opportunity to do. So Dan was going to check with Dr. Ginger and find out what the exact distribution is supposed to be, and whether or not it's supposed to change now that we're a named party, and that that distribution list needs to be updated so that we get the draft right away. I thought it was particularly interesting that they sent us a draft, a redacted draft that redacted out portions of the report that referenced us in reference to APD in those paragraphs. So, as yet, I still haven't received a full copy of the report.
Do you have any idea about the redactions?
Well, there's been a bit of a change in that for 2 and 3 for sure, because I was here for those. The report would come out. Bill would ask us to come over, go through the paragraphs with him and his auditors, and then we would respond to it. And this time we've been excluded from that process. So there's, I don't know what the particular rationale might be, whether it's something in the report that they don't want us to see right away until it's public, or if they just don't feel like they want to collaborate with us any longer. And if that's the case, that's fine, because we certainly can respond directly to the monitoring team with the requests that they make of us, and we're prepared to do that. We just need to know that if that's how we're going to proceed, then we don't need Director Slauson and Gabe Cruz sending us emails asking us for data and information. We'll respond directly to the monitoring team. The second item of note is after our POB meeting in July with Director Slauson and Attorney Hernandez, the board adopted the memorandum of understanding for the mediation, and Attorney Hernandez suggested that we utilize her channels to expedite the process for getting that memorandum approved by the monitoring team, so then we could have all the parties sign it and then enact it. Well, I followed up with Dr. Ginger this week, and he didn't recall seeing it. So it doesn't appear that sending it through those channels actually got it to Dr. Ginger. It's been uploaded through the Podio system that the department uses for the management of the CASA. It was uploaded there, but Attorney Hernandez specifically stated that we should direct it through her channels because they're with the monitoring team all the time. They could get in front of the monitoring team and we could get a quicker response. And it doesn't appear that they sent it over at all.
The monitoring team's attorney?
No.
Jessica Hernandez,
Jessica Hernandez, the city attorney. I got it. I sent the email and I got a response from Dr. Ginger in about 3 minutes. I don't recall seeing that. I'll look into it. And now it's filtered back. And I CC'd Jessica Hernandez because I didn't want, I'm not going behind her back. I'm just saying, look, Dr. Ginger, did you get this? And if you did, did you have any feedback? Because we're waiting to implement that. And now they're looking into who dropped the ball or whatever happened to why the monitoring team didn't get it. Because it's a critical component of our evaluation with the CRC, so that we can categorize the complaints and help with workflow and efficiency. And we wanted to make sure that we had the monitoring team
signing off,
acceptance and signing off, so then we could have the parties sign off, and then we could fully implement it. So those are really the only two things that I have at this point.
Would you like me to do my report? Would you like me to do my report?
Yeah, well,
We can circle back around.
yeah,
When we
you
get
can-
the
yeah, if it
technology working.
starts working. Yeah.
I think we're not going to be able to do that, so I'm just going to, I'll pull it up and then you'll be able to, you can look at it.
Can you pull it up? Do you want to pull it up right now, or do you want Miriam to go ahead then?
Go ahead and let Miriam go
Okay.
through and try and get this
Okay.
situated.
Great.
Okay, so you asked me to give you feedback on a few items. The first is the police car usage. And were you specifically referencing the data that we requested around employees being drug tested after vehicle accidents? Or were you talking about vehicle accidents or vehicle
We were looking for
usage
the
in city?
location of them, whether people were on duty and not on duty. And then I thought we were also looking for those that were towed, had to be towed, because there's a different protocol for accidents where they have to be towed.
To see if they have been drug tested,
Yes.
if they have been towed, yeah.
Yeah.
So we had requested the initial data from them, and they had given us the name, the department, the officers that had vehicles, their rank, and the type of car. We followed up with a second request, including was the officer on or off duty, the severity of the accident, were they drug tested, time of day. And that was sent to Mark Leach, and he just got back to me a few days ago and said that that data wasn't collected in any one place, and that if we wanted it, we needed to send a formal request through the board as we had before for the previous data. Initially, they had said, just come to us whenever you want data. And so I
right.
did that, and he said, I reached out to my contacts, and it would take them many hours to pull this data for you. So if you would like it, you need to send a formal request from the board.
How is that any different?
It's not going to take them fewer hours if we send a
Yeah.
formal request. It's just a way to drag their feet.
Yeah.
Is there any way to cut down on this in the future to find out what exactly do you need? And so we have that on paper, on stone, so that we don't have this again. We're like, oh, we need this, we need that. Bring the whole rock drill. I know it's very ambiguous, ambiguous. But
Like if I had a letter from the board anytime I needed data and I just send it to them, is that what you're saying?
Is that what you need?
Is that what would
Well,
that
that's
do
what
it?
they're requesting. They're
It's data. I'll sign a blank check for it. I don't care. Do you guys
Well,
care?
that's something
I don't
else
care.
that's on here about data tonight, but
Well, fine. Let's ask the board to essentially give a blank form to Miriam to ask for whatever data she wants per us.
So we'll bring that up, saying that we'll just draft a letter saying that this is our person to give report data to.
Right. And just like fill it in.
Okay.
It's data.
I think it's a matter of when you make a request and it's so cumbersome that it would take them 50 hours of work to pull it, and so they don't.
Well, the fact is, even if all we were doing is making an IPRA request, I mean, but we don't have to IPRA this, and they're acting like we do.
Right.
They don't seem to understand that we have access to this data. It's not just a good idea, it's the law.
well, we'll talk about this more when we get to the ordinance, but I'm wondering, do you feel that there's something, that it is too cumbersome to ask for this data, or do you feel there's some pushback from Mark, or that Mark's getting pushed on? I mean...
Well, I think you don't know what you need until you need it.
I think that there's maybe a certain piece of data in here that is not in a database. They're not collecting it, so they have to go back through written reports or something. That's my mind.
That's your guess.
Someone is...
I don't believe that.
I mean, I don't understand why they wouldn't have data on the severity of their accidents. That seems like pretty standard data to have. Whether the employee was drug tested, that's in a system somewhere.
It sounds like they don't have the data.
I mean,
We would hope.
did they have so many accidents that it's going to take them 100 hours to look at each one and say yes or no that was towed away, or then there was a drug test? I mean,
I just want to point out that the last board meeting, she didn't report on the accidents. That was not part of her report. And she had been reporting on the accidents
who?
previous.
Jen?
Captain.
Lieutenant Garcia.
Garcia.
Yeah.
She
Jennifer.
wasn't on the list this time. And so
We know it's not because they didn't crash.
and so I just started wondering when I didn't want to ask about it at the meeting, but I wondered if this has become sensitive or something. I just was curious
So what's our moving forward? What do we need to
to do.
do?
I'll ask.
So, I have a couple of thoughts. I mean, we could literally ask the board for essentially a blank check to give to Miriam. The other thing we can do is have the board give the chair and the vice chair authority to do this on behalf of the board, and all you have to do is call us and we say yes or why, and
But I'm afraid of setting a precedent there, because where does it say that they need authorization from us in the first place? Why do we need to give that authorization?
right. It's true. They said come to us with whatever you need. You don't have to do a formal process, and now they're saying they want a formal process.
Well, does the formal process, does the formal request then, I guess, is it necessary that it comes from you?
I don't
Or
think
does
so.
it just simply need to come from us to say, here's our request for this data?
Dr. Verplu's is the agent of
Right.
the POB, and
Right.
she should be able to get the
Right.
data she
Yeah.
needs.
So do you want to just kind of work our way up, and I can draft a memo and
Sure.
say, here's what Dr. Verplu's requesting, and just consider this a formal request for that data?
Mm-hmm. And send it to the chief and the DOJ and God and everybody. Say, you told us to come to you and keep this informal, and we did, and you said no, so
I'd include
now it's
that in there,
formal.
too. Now this is formal.
Give us the friggin' data.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
The second thing on your agenda items was an update on the forensic policies and procedures.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Maybe we should give them a little background on how that came about.
yeah, Dr. Brown and I met with Connie Monahan, the statewide SANE coordinator, to talk a little bit about sexual assault and safe testing. And
Sexual assault.
The rape kits
The
and
rape
all
kits.
that kind of stuff.
And so a lot of really informative things came out of that meeting. But she had talked about two people that might be good for us to be put in contact with. One was the detective who is in charge of the sex crimes unit, is that right? Mm-hmm. And then also the second person was Mr. Krebsbach, who is the director of the crime lab. And so I sent him an email and just asked him a few questions about whether they had a policy around SAIC testing, how they prioritized their SAIC testing, and whether they did outsourcing. He sent me back an email that basically said they're working on it.
They're working on what?
They're working on creating a policy connected to best practices, but that they weren't ready to...
They don't have a policy is what we think we discovered.
So I have the email here. This is an ongoing dialogue and subject to changes as labs across the country are shifting best practices to keep up with the state of science. The aim is to formalize an RFP that can be reflected into policy. At this point, it's difficult for me to answer these types of questions as they're subject to ongoing discussion with contract vendors. And he said, when we're ready, we hope to bring this to SOPRC, and we hope that you would also bring your concerns at that point. So I wanted to bring this to your attention. You can read this further and sort of talk to me about what you'd like to do to move forward. I think it would still make sense to meet with the detective if you'd like to.
Well, and help me remember, but is it both of them are retiring this year? Both the detective and the man at forensic?
It sounded like maybe that's what they were saying.
They were, yeah.
I know for sure that the...
Forensic guy.
I don't know for sure about Dr. Krebsbach, but I know that I'm forgetting his name right now, but the person who's in charge of the sex crimes unit is retiring, so we might want to meet with him. And she also had some recommendations around training. She said that there was some training that they had done around DV for APD, and APD stopped requesting that, so they're no longer doing training around things like... She mentioned strangulation specifically and said that they would like to come in for training, so that might be something that's as easy as just talking to Major Tyler and letting her know. And
This came up because the DV policy came through PPRB, and among other things, it didn't have the investigation really as part of it. It had a couple little points, but the investigation, the evaluation of the safety of the victim, which is the best practices nowadays, is not part of it. It was a really a very weak policy, and so
he's a doctor.
then we started looking
Dr.
at it.
Krebsbach. Okay.
MS. Master of Science.
I wonder why I thought he was a doctor.
I notice he doesn't address you as Dr. Verplu. If he was a real doctor, he would know better than that. Well, I mean, I'm okay kicking this upstairs to the POB and have this discussion in the meeting and send a letter to the chief and say, it kind of looks like y'all don't have a policy at all. So
We can't find it anyhow.
well, and the person who's supposed to be responsible for it is like, well, I'm retiring in 2 months. I couldn't possibly deal with this before. Oh, I'm gone.
There's no interim or vice director, or there's no one else that's in charge of this? So it's just one person over there who's in charge of everything?
That is an excellent question.
Sorry, I'm having difficulties.
It's all right.
No, background music, it's fine. That's interesting.
I think we accidentally opened a can of worms.
Well, that's what we're here
And
for.
I don't know, I'd love everyone's opinion as to
I think
how we should proceed on this one.
I think if it gets kicked out to the public and there's an ugly news story about it, they'll fix it. And if it doesn't, they won't.
Is that the best next step?
It's a next step that will accomplish something. If our job is, in fact, to make people at APD unhappy, then that will fulfill our job.
Well, that would definitely make them unhappy.
Because that's really lame.
Yeah,
There's no policy. We're thinking
I don't
about
understand
it.
why they wouldn't have a policy.
Except
I
I'm
understand
retiring and I don't want to talk about
he's
it.
working on making a policy better, but they definitely have a protocol for how they evaluate.
we write back and
They-
ask for the protocol that they're currently using.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Right, but we're not going to... When did you write this? Write him initially?
September 22nd.
And then it took him quite a while to respond, maybe
Nearly a month.
Yeah.
So I'd say, sure, write him back and tell him
In the
he
next
has
week or so.
3 days to respond. And then when that doesn't come through, we'll just talk
So-
about it in the POB.
Question,
Okay.
what is the discussion with the contract vendors? Are they outsourcing this work or?
Yes, we discovered that some of it, I think some of it goes to Santa Fe. A lot of it's backlogged. Some of it that's backlogged and the what is it called when you're you can't prosecute any longer, the limitations.
Statute of limitations.
Statute of limitations has run out. That could be contracted out. So it looks like
for like half the cost.
yeah, for half the cost.
And they have
Part of it goes to the
thousands
state labs.
left.
Some of it's just it's a real complex situation. From what they told us, it's sane, but they're not APD. So
they just have this huge backlog, and they're getting like 30 a month in. But they have, I can't even remember how many, that they have 5,000 or something, sort of sitting in a basement that no one's testing, but it costs $1,000 for a test.
No, we saw that when we did our tour. We saw all the boxes up at the
yeah,
top.
Yeah.
on that first floor there.
Interesting.
Okay.
Well, wait a second.
Somebody burn me a copy of that letter.
Sure.
You want a copy? You want to read it here now? or-
No, I want a copy.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Okay, so the plan that I'm hearing is that we give them a time limit to at least see their current, or to have a chance to see their current protocol. And that we talk to the detective that was recommended, see what light he can shed on what's going on. And then part 3 would be, we're not getting anywhere to go.
Well, I'd say whatever we get between now and, when's the meeting? The
10th.
November 10th.
Mhm.
However far we get between now and November 10th is how far we get, and then let's
And
bring it
that's-
up in the meeting and talk
And
about
put
it.
it under the policy committee's report. Okay. Okay.
And have copies of that letter plus whatever we get back
Okay.
to distribute to the public. Please. No, thank you.
The third item is an update on the on-body camera policy that just went through OPA and now is, I believe, SOPRC. Are they next? That policy is confusing. So basically, they had Paul Guerin, who is the doctor who did the research study for UNM's Institute of Social Research on the cameras. So he came in and did a presentation. We talked about the IPRA requirements. The MRAC chair came in and talked. And then we basically just went through the policy. And so there were a few changes that were made. There was a big discussion about whether officers were going to be able to review lapel before giving a statement during an investigation. And I don't believe a decision was made on that. Do you remember if any decision was made about whether they could review lapel video?
No, they wanted to bring it back in and then try to delineate it between serious use of force, officer involved shooting, and try to make a distinction between the officer being able to use their on-body recording device in order to capture report details if they're the investigating officer, as opposed to the officer that's being investigated. And they struggled with it, and they couldn't come up with a consensus.
Either all the time or never.
This has been going on for...
To treat the officer different when they're the, suspect or victim versus when they're doing an investigation, that doesn't work. You either get to review it or you don't.
It's not one or the other. I would think that you would be able to review if you're doing an investigation, you'd be able to review it, but not if it's on you.
Well, so
Another one that they had out, another one, proposal they had out of a discussion was that they could do their report without reviewing it, but then they could then review it and have
Supplement.
the option to do the revision.
I think that's what that was what was being recommended, is that they would give their initial statement or their initial report, and then they would be able to review the evidence and give us a supplemental statement.
And I think that's clearer than trying to decide who's who.
yeah, I mean the problem is the camera doesn't capture everything. It captures it badly, and it captures it in one dimension. I mean, we've had this discussion before. If you grab my arm and I tense up, that doesn't look like anything on the camera, but for you feeling that's
Message.
a message that I'm about to like punch you or something. And so I don't know, they need to make a decision though.
I think what they decided was, this is from Kara's report, and it says OPA agreed that more research and review is needed when the policy is up for review again. So I think they left it as it is, which gives the officer the discretion to view or not view based on legal advice.
So they did.
I think they left it as it is, so
As
they
it is.
can view it.
They can view it after the report is written.
No, right away, if they want to, based on legal advice. But APOA said that they would always advise the officers not to watch the video because it would put them at a higher standard, right? Then they know more information than they might have known at the time of the incident, if that makes sense. So that was one thing they talked about. A second thing was that we asked for CPOA to have access to recordings for investigation purposes. At this point, we have to request them. So investigators are always requesting videos all the time, so they should be able to just get the video that they need for their investigation. And they said that was okay. OPA reviewed
Until
it.
you actually ask for one.
Yeah, right. OPA reviewed and endorsed the addition of our decision tree.
Great.
So they liked that a lot, and they're gonna print it out and put it in the cars so they can have a quick guide. I think they changed a few of the things that I had recommended.
That's
But
okay. Well, if they need to be changed, they can be changed again later. Yeah. That's great. And how about the data that they're going to collect to review the policy to decide if it's effective? Didn't go anywhere.
It's very challenging for them to look at data right now on camera footage.
How
It's-
so?
Because
Well, I'm still new to this, but from my understanding, Dr. Gearing came in and talked to us about how their study was really challenging because there's no way to connect camera footage to CADs. So you don't really know the idea is that you would be able to do some kind of audit to see when officers are actually using their video or not. But at this current point, we can't know that.
And did Paul have some recommendations around that? Like every time they tag a video, they should like put the CAD number on it or something? Really sensible like that?
Yeah. They're going into a new contract with a new vendor right now, and so my understanding is that with the new vendor, they'll have that opportunity to be able to do that, and so I think that's why they were waiting to put in the data piece into the policy to make till the vendor is in place, and then they would relook at that.
So
The
two
issue-
issues, two policies, both of which are being driven by the vendor, not the department.
That
Okay,
is
just checking.
ridiculous. That is back-asswards.
Uh-huh.
No.
Hello.
And the
Worry
last
about
thing,
another.
You can come in. You can come in and empty
minutes.
trash. It's okay.
Yeah.
And the last thing was to rewrite the section to include recording during transport of prisoners. because our investigators had told us that they see a lot of problems coming up, complaints coming up during the transportation when officers are not recording. They stop recording as soon as the person's in
And did that finally get?
handcuffs. Yeah.
Yeah. So we made some.
We made some changes.
Yeah,
Some
in
more
some ways,
screen
some
tests.
major changes. I want to go back to Dr. Garing, though, because one of the things he also said when he came to the meeting is there's no use having a policy if you're not collecting data. And
Yeah.
yeah, and it's really sort of sad because he and his team managed to collect enough data to write a report on some things that could be changed about body cameras, and so
They had to do it sort of anecdotally as opposed to
right, but
looking systematically. at
right,
stuff.
but still, if the policy at least it said how anecdotally we might do things, or what percentage of officers were going to review or have supervisors review the tapes on, or something like that. At least we'd be farther ahead. I don't know. It's really discouraging me. Part of it's really positive that we got a few things done there, but the rest of it's discouraging still.
So one of the things that I'd like for us to start doing is every time you make a policy recommendation that they summarily blow off, we need to do a letter to the chief
Okay.
from the POB,
Okay.
make him answer within 45 days, and city council is asking that when the chief then blows us off, that we show up in council and get an agenda item. Council has said that they would be delighted to hold a special meeting to do nothing but hear all of our hearings on stuff the chief has blown off.
Okay.
And so we need to start making that paper trail each and every time something is reasonably important, where we make a policy recommendation and they just say, yeah, whatever. And it's good that they took like a couple, but we just need to start making that record of, here's our recommendation. We made it on this day, this time, in this meeting. Chief, please adopt this. And then either he doesn't respond, or he accepts it, or he responds and says no. And then we start taking those. The next step, the really important ones, we start taking to council.
That's a very good idea.
They're asking us to do that because it also puts the chief and APD out of compliance with the monitor on each one.
So are we tracking that now, or how?
We're not currently tracking it.
Okay.
And so we need to figure out a system.
What would be a good way of doing that on the website? Somewhere where everyone can see, or?
Well, so who all from the POB is actually making direct policy recommendations? You.
I am. And I can probably remember some of it. I mean, I know I can.
Well, we have them all as a part of the POB minutes,
Okay.
and that's
The POB minutes?
that's how they're being posted and tracked.
The policy and recommendations are?
Right.
Okay, but how about the policies when, just like Sue recommends it, or you guys recommend something in a
You
meeting?
mean in a meeting?
In the
Okay.
Right, I'm talking about however informal,
Put in a lot of
we
informal
make a recommendation and they say, yeah, whatever. We need to start then taking those to the next meeting, discussing it. If the POB agrees that, yes, this is worth doing,
Then we write a chief's
we
letter.
write the chief a letter. This is our recommendation for this policy. Please respond.
Okay.
And just start making a record each and every time. And, it doesn't have to be about changing 3 words, but anytime it's substantive, let's just start doing it. And council has asked us to do that and to start bringing them those.
Okay.
And follow the process in the ordinance and actually take it to council and kick them
Well,
out a
your
little bit.
commercial comment about whether they could release it, maybe that's something that we can.
So we need to also then make sure that whenever Paul is in an SLPRC meeting and he's
That's
making
another one.
any recommendations that those are annotated and then brought before the board
Please.
as well.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And we'll just do it each and every time, and that'll It does a couple things. It accrues to our 51% policy. It puts the chief on notice that, because what they want to do is, we want to keep it informal. We want to keep it informal. Well, yeah, because then you're never responsible for actually, following the ordinance. So we need to get better at it and just start creating that paper trail. And
So who's going to be the custodian of that product? Is it this committee or is it CPOA?
Yeah, I would be happy to do that for you guys.
that would be great. Because you're also going to be the one where we're going to say, okay, they didn't like this idea. Can you look and see if somebody has a policy we can, copy, plagiarize?
You maybe are in the position that, like on the data still, of getting data through the informal network still, if it's still functioning. And you think it is still functioning. You really think that Mark couldn't get you the data because it was too laborious on the time and the severity of accidents? You didn't feel he was stonewalling?
No,
Okay.
no, I don't think
Okay.
so. But I think that someone down the line just thought, that's too much work. We don't want to do that.
Okay.
And so he didn't have enough sway to get them to do it.
Okay.
You
All
know.
right.
And so he was like, I guess we
Okay.
do need Bill Slauson to say, you have to.
All right.
And then they would decide at that point how to handle it, I guess. I don't know. I mean, it was funny because he asked me directly if I would come to him if I had data requests.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been great about data. They've made this really great data warehouse, and they've made me an Excel file that will pull up all of our data, use of force shooting, CPC data, like up to date to today. So I just open the Excel file and it updates, which is really great.
That's great.
But there's like other pieces of data that aren't in that data warehouse that we need.
So there's two possibilities. One is it's not easily accessible, and the other is they went to get it for you, they looked at it, and they went, oh shit, we're not going to give it to her. Let's stall. And I don't know which it is, and we won't know until we see the data.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then, so I can do that for you. Just be the
All
person
right.
who keeps track of all the policy recommendations.
And you'll say something to Paul so he feeds
Absolutely.
them into you. Okay.
And you as well.
And I'll go back and...
And then do you want them directed through this subcommittee up to the POB?
If we meet between, so if you had one last week, then bring it here. If you have one 3 days from now, take it straight to the POB so that we're doing it as quickly as we can.
Okay.
And,
All right.
in a perfect world, you'd be handing the POB a policy that's pretty polished, so we don't have to spend a lot of time. We can just go, oh yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay.
Cool, next.
Okay.
Awesome, thank you.
And the last piece is you asked me to bring you an updated
Yeah.
list of policies that would be taken up by OPA. So this is the way that APD will be reviewing for the 6-month review of policies. So Kara sent me this yesterday.
Now, did she change it from... Yeah, because I asked... Because, we got so far behind on
They're
the body
really behind,
cameras.
yeah.
I couldn't believe it. And she said, oh, no, we're still on the same track. Thank you.
Yeah.
I couldn't
So
get
when-
it from her.
Piece of information that I've been told that comes from a fairly reliable source is that the chief and his minions have decided that they did these 38 policies, the original ones, to get through their timetable, and they're not going to do another single thing until there's a new mayor and administration. This was their piece. They want the next chief, whoever that is, to start with this and move on. And I don't know if it's true or not. But it might explain why they're now just like spinning their wheels and screwing around with the same policy for weeks and weeks and weeks.
If that is the case, I think we ought to jump up and down about the policy on policies and the policy on police, what the chief of police requirements are. I mean, seriously.
I will say that
Because
there's
both
a
of those were
serious-
already
Yeah.
to push.
There's been a serious attrition rate on OPA. I mean, 2 weeks ago when there was the final discussions about the body-worn recording devices, it was Dr. Verplu, myself, Major Tyler came in at some point, Sean showed up at some point. Jeremy, the vice president, is that his name? Jeremy, the vice president of the association, was there, and then 2 city attorneys and Kara. That's it. No other command staff from APD at all.
Well, that would be consistent with what I was told. We did our piece. We're not doing anything else. When the new chief and administration come in, they can pick up here and move it forward. But we did our stint and we're done.
Okay, how are we going to test this rumor? By attendance at the meetings would be one way.
Well, and writing a letter to the chief saying we want you to change this policy if we just don't get back a response, and we have to,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
The policy on policies is one of the 38, though, but the chief policy isn't.
so let's write it up, let's recommend it, let's send it to the chief and say we want you to adopt it, and see what happens, and see if we can kick that one up to council
Fast.
right?
Okay.
Because the mayoral election is a year from now, is that right?
Yes, because
It's that odd year, even year thing.
the election schedule was just produced today and sent out to city departments. So you have to declare by January 1st. And so, yes, so next year is the election year.
Right, so let's see if we can, I mean, that gives us time to put the policy together. If we can get the POB to adopt it this meeting, send a letter to the chief saying we want you to adopt this, and when we either don't get a response back in 45 days or he says no, then that's the first one we kick up to council, because that'll be pretty well timed to get that in the books prior to the selection of a new chief, presumably new chief.
All right. I guess we have to, though, confirm the rumor that they're not.
Well, whether it's true or not, it shouldn't affect what we do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just another reason to do this thing in writing, right? And start creating this paper trail of, hey, we made this recommendation, and y'all said, okay, whatever. Or no one showed up to OPA who had the authority to do anything.
Well, they were going to do the policy on policies. It came up for review. I showed up with a bunch of recommendations that Sue and I had developed, and then they said, I think they saw that we had recommendations, and they said, we're not going to review this policy, and we'll look at it next time in 6 months.
Right.
And it was just like, we had done all this work, and
What was the rationale, though?
Do you remember why?
That they'd made a few changes. They'd made some changes, and that was enough.
Right, is that when they said that that's right, when
They
they
had changed
adopted?
the
Yes.
name.
They had changed
They
the name of the
changed the
policy.
name of it.
Changed the name of the policy that added OPA, and they had done all those things, and they claimed that they were
Yeah, it's
just
enough.
minor changes.
And we put in definitions. They added the definitions.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so we take the policy and policies then and send it to the chief
Mm-hmm.
now? What do you think?
Yep. Let's send it to the POB this time. Just to make sure it gets on the agenda.
You want it on the agenda for the policy and policies on the agenda? Should it have, okay.
And the chief of police.
And the chief of police has already been on it.
Did we vote on it?
We
Yeah.
voted to send it to OPA.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that, so now
Did OPA do anything?
I haven't sent it to them.
you haven't?
I wanted to just make sure that you wanted me to send
Okay.
it. For me
You'd
to
rather
send
have it sent, you wanted it sent to the chief, right? PPRB said to send it to OPA. We're in this jam right now.
I don't have an opinion about
You
that. I just
haven't.
didn't know if it should come from me or not.
Well, if we send a letter to the chief, it then starts the 45 days ticking. We can also copy those other groups, whatever their initials are, this week. And if they want to change it in the meantime and say, oh, hey, we're done, we took what you said, then that's great. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's take it back to the POB and say, you know, and I'll talk about what I've been talking about.
In light of developments, we've decided that
Oh, that's good language, in light of developments.
Right.
this
in light of the
policy
fact that-
should go directly to the chief for his per the protocols of the ordinance,
Right.
instead of the previous decision to work through OPA.
Right. Especially if no one shows up to OPA.
Okay, that's all.
Okay, so
So the chief of the police and the policy and policies will go to the chief. It will go to OPA first, and then it'll go to the chief.
well,
No,
it's going to go to the
I'm
chief.
sorry, I
and-
meant our POB.
Yes,
Excuse me.
POB. Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, now POB is seen that, well, we'll put it in again. We'll put in the chief of police again in our binder, and then we'll put the policy and policies in.
And then you're also going to bring whatever response you get on the sexual assault kit cluster. All right. Okay. Anything else you want to
Yeah, there's,
dig out of the mothballs where you've done
Some
a
work.
good policy recommendation and some work, and they said,
yeah,
Pound
I'll
sand.
go back and look at some of them. I'm sure as soon as I look, I'll remember. I know I voted against one of them recently, too, and I can't even remember which one it was. They rarely vote.
They don't
they-
vote in OPA.
at
No.
OPA, no.
No. They
I
just-
don't see
and
why.
this particular time they voted, and I voted against whatever it was, and I have to think about it. I think it was the one that, oh yeah, I know what it was.
what?
It was the one that they were going over the arrest report and the different things that were in the arrest report, and they basically follow what's required for DPS. And the first time I asked a question, they said, "Oh no, we don't change it because this is mandated by the state." But as the meeting dragged on, they were changing all kinds of things. So at the end, I asked again, about the ethnicity, racial part, and what data we really were collecting there. And they futzed around again, and so without a clear answer, then when it came time to vote, I voted against the policy because, it's really important for us to collect data, and
Yeah, I
and
think
they
that they've figured
did
out
change stuff.
that if they don't have data, they can't be criticized for
Right.
the results.
Right.
One thing that we learned at the iPro training is that all of those capabilities for tracking ethnicity and demographic information on traffic stops and Terry stops is in Blue Team. And Blue Team, the entire department is trained in Blue Team now.
But they're not using it to collect that.
No.
No, that sounds like a good recommendation from us.
Yeah,
So
Dave
there
Hardigan
are
did
two
a,
different ways we could approach this
he's
one.
a IAPRO trainer, and he did a really excellent presentation on race and ethnicity data collection and stops, and basically said, this is coming down the pike. People are going to be doing it. You might as well get on board and be able to control your own narrative
Oh,
about
really?
it.
Okay.
And I talked to him afterwards about some of the problems we have with our race and ethnicity data, and I said, maybe you could talk to our department. And he said, oh, I have talked to your department. And I was like, oh, okay.
Okay.
So
So now we have it on two different fronts, both the policy that went through and also from your conference. That
So why don't you drag
we're being
that?
stonewalled two different places.
So why don't you drag that policy recommendation out?
Okay, I'll
and
draw pull
see.
it. Okay.
Let's just send a stack of letters to the chief every
Okay.
meeting.
cool.
Okay. Arrest reports.
I'll look through my stuff. I know I have a bunch, but I would like to give you ones that are like really important.
Right, and
Yeah,
you know,
that's what I'm trying to think of.
important and stuff where we have done work and have data, particularly where we can have an attachment like this. Here's why we're saying this, not because we pulled this out of our butt, right? Not just because it seems like a good idea.
There's specific legislation that can be referenced as it relates to what California has to comply with and how they've set up their own database for these departments to access to download and access the information.
Cool. Yeah. I can't imagine we're reinventing the wheel on any of this, right?
Here in New Mexico, on ethnicity, you're either Hispanic or other.
Right. So there's
On
race, and
on the
if
report.
among, regardless of race, you can be Hispanic and,
No, it's race.
African. You can be Hispanic and white. You can be Hispanic and something
It's so
else.
challenging though, because if you go to do like any of the IA Pro reports, for example, on officer demographics and something else, right? Like use of force and race of officer, it looks like 70% of your sample's white. Because what happens is they click white and then Hispanic. And so, but that's not really the experience of people who are Hispanic,
Right.
So it's a little bit of a challenge from a data perspective to split Hispanic out from the race category.
When you look at self-administered census stuff in New Mexico, lots and lots of Hispanic people put other and
Yes.
Hispanic.
So we have a huge other category and a huge white category, and it doesn't make sense when you look at the demographics of our.
Right.
It's like, why is all of our population white and other? And it's like, oh, because they're
Right.
Hispanic.
Yeah, it's because anthropologists have based race on what you see on a skeleton.
And
As far
ethnicity.
as skeletons are concerned, there are just, 4 races, sort of. And even then, Native American only gets parsed out by frontal incisors, right? I mean, it's all very. So, if you see a skeleton, you can tell the race, but that's not what we perceive as, race and ethnicity and cultural differences and everything else. And so, they've stuck with these old, anthropologist definitions that aren't all that helpful.
Well, do you feel that California's definitions are helpful? Are they going to be the cutting edge of how we're going to look at things in the
They're
future?
certainly more broad and much more inclusive.
Because California, at least when I was a cop there, they treated Hispanic like a race. And so you had white, Hispanic, Asian, Pacific Islander, Native American, and other. And I don't know if that's still what they do. Is that right? So, I think that's right.
And I think the census is going to be moving towards including Hispanic because they have the same problem where they have this huge other category.
Right. And it's making their data all wonky.
I thought
Yes.
they were going to get rid of Hispanic.
They're not going to get rid of it. They're going to put it under the race instead of
Under-
instead of you're black and Hispanic or you're white and Hispanic. They're
Okay.
they're just going to say Hispanic, and then if people want to check more than one, they can. Somebody's from Cuba and they would appear African American, they can check, African American and Hispanic. Or whatever, it's
But if you're from Spain, you check off white because you're not Hispanic, but you're Spanish speaking.
oh, Spain is almost as diverse color-wise as the U.S. is. People are African American all the way to blonde hair, blue-eyed. Lots of Moorish African influences, and but they're all Spanish. So
basically, when I do any analysis, I just pull the Hispanic category in for race, and I just
treat it like a race.
and then I
that's
just
how
call it race
And that's how
ethnicity.
people think of themselves generally, and
So.
the categories are made up by lots of white anthropologists. Let's put it that way.
Who got their PhD on it?
Who did it looking at skeletons, not people, live people.
Okay. All right. The 6-month review dates. At POB the last time there was a request that we go ahead and try to get the next policies to OPA. Our comments. Now we're wondering whether OPA's going to even be looking at our comments.
Kara asked in her email when she sent that, I said
Okay.
the board is interested in having an updated version, and she said if you could ask them for any best practices or research or ideas that they
Okay.
have on the policies, we would be greatly appreciative.
Okay.
So I think Kara's basically developing all the research for all the policies
Yeah.
single-handedly,
Okay.
with a little bit of help from me. And I'm happy to help with that. If you guys want to say, like, we're really interested in the uniform policy, please do all the research for it. I would be happy to do that for
The
you.
uniform policy.
But
Boy,
Because
we've
you got
had
nothing to do, right?
Right. Uniform policy, honest to Pete. I can't tell you how much time we wasted recently on badges for, who's badges for? Oh, for the field training officers, yes indeed.
And caps.
And caps, baseball caps to be exact.
When and when can't you wear them?
Yeah. What buildings, courts, etc. you can have your baseball.
Important stuff, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And these, these big conversations, some of these, my God. Okay. All right. So here are the ones coming up. And
So, going completely off
go ahead.
script here, do we have we been tracking the chief being late on our letters? You know, it was in the paper that the chief doesn't respond and was late.
Right.
But I didn't go, I didn't tell him that. I didn't talk to him at all because I never do. But I didn't go back and look at dates and see if he was late or not.
Those were more directed toward the questions of the Finance Committee at City Council
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that he doesn't formally respond to the discipline recommendations and findings.
Okay.
Instead, he simply relies on whatever's in the IA file to come
Okay.
back to us to convey his findings. He's not directing any letters specifically to the board regarding your findings and why he doesn't concur with them.
Okay. But he's supposed to do that under the ordinance, yes?
Yes. And that's something that is pointed out in the monitor's report, fourth report.
Okay.
All of the others,
Violating the city ordinance is a misdemeanor. Anybody want to go file it as a private citizen?
How about Charles?
Maybe my last official act as chair.
something for him to do.
Okay. Well, the ones then that are coming up, the hostage suicide barricaded subject. Oh, that's gone by. Did they? They didn't talk about it.
No.
Which one did they last actually talk about? So even though that's
behavioral
been
science
redone,
and
We just-
commands,
did they talk about behavioral science? That was
It
mine.
got chaired.
Huh? It got
It
chaired.
got put back because
Okay.
Dr. Rosen
Oh yeah, him.
didn't appear. So
Okay.
he couldn't explain why he wanted certain
That was
aspects of the
wrong.
policy changed and rewritten.
So that'll be the next one,
September 8th will be.
November.
November 8th. Okay, firearms ammunition authorization. I thought I had that list with me, and I don't have it of what people signed up for.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that went out to people either, because I don't remember what I signed up for.
Yeah, I have it, and I'll send it out, but
Okay.
I don't have it in this file. Okay.
Do you want me to look at ammunition?
I think you honestly signed up for
I
that.
probably
one.
did.
I think you did sign
Because
up
I
for
at
that
least
one.
am familiar with it.
Yeah, yeah. And I think you might have also signed up for the hostage suicide.
Oh, I don't think so.
I signed up for the behavioral science. I know I
Yeah,
did
when the
that.
tape's off, I'll tell you about the first time after I got hostage negotiated, trained.
All right.
My first suicidal person on the phone, but I'm not going to say what the tape is. I'll tell you about it
Okay.
later.
All right, so I will get the new dates and ask people to get information. In what format do you think it should be submitted in? Is the format that
They're
ACL...
open to any format.
Okay.
And I can reformat it.
Okay, because ACLU had some really, classy formatting. I thought this...
I can send you that recommendation form, but Kara said it wasn't necessary for
Okay.
us because we have seats on the board, so we can
Okay.
submit it any way
Okay.
we want. I typically submit it in track changes
Okay.
so that the committee can see it, or the board
Okay.
members can see where it is.
Where
or
it
Assuming you
ended
can-
up, whether it was accepted or unaccepted.
just
not
they can see where it
accepted.
is in the policy. I
Mhm.
think is easier than having it just written down on a scratch piece of paper.
Okay. All right. That'll be my job. Okay, the other thing, did Mark send to you the suggested changes for the ordinance for us to talk about tonight?
I haven't gotten anything from Mark in that.
Okay, I met with Mark. That's the last thing on the agenda here. To talk about the changes in the ordinance. For example, the ordinance does not say we have access to data. It says this, that, and something else and other. But it does not happen to say data. And so I asked if we could have data in there. What it does say is APD shall provide POB members, the director, and CPOA staff with reasonable access to APD premise, files, documents, reports, and other materials that are reasonably necessary for the agency to perform thorough independent investigations and review of force and officer-involved shootings. But it doesn't say anything about needing data for policies.
I thought it said it in another place, though.
Well,
Is that the only...
It talks about audits then in another spot that we can audit our own files, or the board can ask for POB audits. And then another place that says the POB shall review and analyze policy suggestions, studies, and trend data collected or developed by the administrative office. And I think it
Yeah,
also
that's you
should
guys'
be
data.
added there, and APD data.
Yeah.
And this is what I've asked him to, rewrite this whole part here. I thought we'd have it by tonight, but I guess we don't. And then the other thing I asked to be added here is that we add language in this particular section of the ordinance that we also are voting members on all policy committees. Because that's not in there at all. And while we have, done a lot of this informally, I mean, we're on voting members of all their policy committees, I'm really concerned about...
Well, they can kick us off tomorrow.
Pardon?
They can kick us off tomorrow.
Absolutely. And so I think we need to go ahead. Now, Mark said he was worried about the timing for us to make these changes.
I think council is currently pretty pissed off at the chief, and I think that we could recommend damn near anything and get it through right now.
Yeah. And
Okay.
so's the monitoring team.
Yeah, I've
Okay.
been meeting with counselors about,
Okay.
fixing you guys' budget at 1% incrementally by the time we are taking over the monitor's job. We're at 1%. And all the counselors are going, so what else do you want? Well, let's see.
Okay, so when I get this...
Dessert every night.
When I get the language, which will...
Restored subpoena power
Yeah.
for investigations instead of just audits.
Yeah.
So when I get this, Beth, should we put it on the agenda for the next time? And should we continue informally meeting with various councilmen about this? Do you want to add it to your, the work on the budget? Carry both little packages forward?
Sure.
And if any of us have a relationship with any of the other council members,
Yeah.
do you know if any? I mean, the only my council person is Pat Davis, but I don't have a relationship with him. I've talked
I
to
had
him.
coffee with Pat this morning. We live a block away from each other. So.
Okay, you got Pat. Okay, what
And I met with
Diane Gibson?
Diane. I have a schedule with Brad,
Good.
the stripper.
He would be a
And-
really important one because he and Ray were the original two on the ordinance.
I know, and that's why I don't want to neglect him on all this.
Yeah, even though we're probably not
And-
voting the same in this election.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, and so those are the three I have lined up at the moment,
Okay.
and I'm happy to go, harass all of them. That's fine. Those are the three I know well enough to call up and
Okay.
say, hey.
Do you know any of the councilmen at all?
No.
Do you?
Maybe this guy.
No, not really. I mean, I probably see Councilor Davis the most.
Yeah, Pat said he meets with you.
And Ray
periodically.
Garduno was my neighbor. Oh, it's
Right.
too bad he's not there anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how about Isaac Benton? Do you want me to try him?
Yeah, if you want to take a run.
Because I have several quasi. Yeah. Okay. I'll do Isaac.
Okay.
And you can coach me and tell me what's working and not working.
And I've got a, let's see, do I have it with me?
Then we have 4. That's what we need. We need a majority. Okay.
So, I sent you this, right?
Yeah.
So, and I can send this to you electronically. But here's the comparison of, this is talking about the budget.
Okay.
Agencies that investigate, and to flatten it out, I did a per officer, per
Great.
population. We're low. We're the
Oh, great.
lowest.
Oh,
So-
great.
And if we were 1%, we'd be right in the middle, which is probably where we should be.
All right. And can you send that?
I'll send it electronically.
Oh, great. Thank you. And then I will send you the ordinance changes. And
Okay.
we'll go ahead and tell Mark we think now is the time. Okay, great. Anything else anyone has? Any concerns? Boy, we've got a lot done, a lot of work to do, but it's working.
Well, I have
Oh, good.
pulled this up. And this is what the Invisible Institute out of Chicago is doing.
That's a real thing, not a made-up thing?
No, they're
They're
Miriam's idols.
Of course they are. It's be horribly geek-driven.
They got-
Data-driven.
So what they're
Yeah.
doing now is
They got 56,000 complaints, and they're doing all this amazing analysis with it. It's super cool.
City of Chicago has put out its new use of force policies and guidelines, and the Invisible Institute has put together this website to allow everybody to go on and comment on those sections as they choose. And so we thought that this would be the outlet for once the board is inserted into the policy track, and there's a policy that the board's going to be considering, that this would be a good outreach outlet to get public input. Certainly more efficient than trying to hold public meetings or waiting for public comment at POB meetings.
Yeah, because public comment is, first of all, people have to be interested enough to come all the way down, and it's inconvenient and it's time consuming. But if they can just jump online and make comments.
Yeah, and they have
And
it
we'll
set up
actually get it.
pretty simply. Just they have it broken out into 4 different categories. Don't be going dark on me. Anyway,
Research.
yeah, here we go. Compare, see the 2016 and the 22 use of force policies guide side by side. Read our annotated 2016 use of force guidelines and add your own. And then they have a whole section of the research that they've compiled for everybody to look at, to sort of do their own research maybe and do comment. But we just thought that Miriam and I were discussing it today, that it's a great example of how we could economize our outreach as the policies, as we look at the policy chart and what POB is going to be considering. to solicit input.
Yeah. I think that's great. I don't want to I don't want to completely get rid of public comments though.
We never will be able to do that, no matter how much
If we can
wish to.
focus them, that's all I hope. But there are people like Don Schrader, for instance, who there's nothing in that household that can be more than $20 where he lives. That's the rule of the household. So there's no computer access and that kind of stuff for him.
Yeah, but he's got a library card.
He does have a
It's only
library
$2.
card, and he goes to the library. But
I haven't
yeah.
seen him lately.
I got some advice from him lately.
Oh, good.
He's alive and well.
That's good.
Anyway, they did a great presentation at NACO as well, and they have a really cool mapping of their use of force complaints in Chicago,
That's great.
like a heat map.
They won this lawsuit that APD gave them all their complaints back from like 1967. So they have 56,000. So they mapped them in all these really cool ways across the city. And then I felt like it was a really nice model for what we could move towards with our data. I mean, we're not anywhere there in terms of how they have some really fancy coders, but I think it's a really nice model for us for how to do.
Sarah can do dot density maps. She can do that.
MASIC.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we could ask her to do it for us.
She likes me.
She doesn't like me.
Uh-huh.
Who?
Sarah.
Sarah, the APD stimulus person.
Oh.
She comes to our office and drinks our sodas.
Well,
Thank
Yeah.
you. What should we do about that at this point? Anything?
well,
Or just
we're gonna. I was speaking with Amanda about that today, so that she understands that outreach is going to have to be a component of this, so that we are collaborating, and she has the best knowledge of the city website to see how capable it would be for us to put together something like this, whether it's a small comment box or how we want to set those things up. And then just whichever policies the board wants to, they're in I-39 or 1-39. Which ones the boards are going to consider taking up.
Okay.
So that would help with board member Fine's concerns about public outreach and comment. That would not overburden the board to have to go to weekly meetings all over the city.
Yeah. Because you just can't ask people to do that. There's no way.
Right.
And you guys are full-time employees and you
Well, could we
Can't do
put
either.
this on our website?
Well, I don't know how capable our website would be of handling it.
Okay.
It's not a hard thing to purchase a domain and put up a website. I think we would try to integrate it first in the city's website to see if it's
Okay.
capable.
Yeah, this Genius program is cool. I don't know how it works, but we could look into it.
Yeah, we're gonna have to play with it
Okay.
and see if the city's
So-
website is capable.
Okay, so we can talk about this, again, later on.
Yeah, I think you just need to give us whatever, decide on, once you're in, decide which policy is going to be the first one up, and we'll try to facilitate that.
Okay, the first policy going to be up.
Okay. Thanks,
guys.
Doc.
Thank
Yeah, bye. Thanks.
Thanks for lunch today.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy bosses there.
Well, we have to have enough space to get in. To get work done. So we have hostage and suicide, force review board, personal code of conduct. Those all come up in November.
I don't know that they're going to get there.
Yeah, I don't think they are either. Let me know.
Right.
So they are right now. But these are among the 38.
Mm-hmm.
So how far down do you think we should? Policy development process, we're going to kick off to the chief now.
We've already
Yeah, we've worked on that
sent
one.
that one to the chief.
We decided to.
The one that we didn't send to the chief directly was the
Chief.
chief's
Police, yeah.
requirements for filling the position of chief
Mhm.
and the duties.
Force Review Board, that comes November 8th. But it's probably not going to be November 8th, is it? Which one do we want to hit? Do you have any ideas? Any suggestions? Knowing that even though it's revised, it's still behind.
So the complaints policy, is this accepting complaints, or is this complaints from one officer to another, or do you know?
I don't know.
No.
What's the number?
3-43.
It's complaints involving officers.
So ERT, did I sign up for that?
Don't know whether you did or not. I'll send everyone out what they
Yeah,
signed up
please.
for, and then also Johnny hasn't signed up for anything. I'm not sure that Lisa and Carlotta I don't think signed up for anything either.
I'm not sure if Johnny knows enough
Mm-hmm.
to know what he doesn't know yet.
But he could sign up for something if there's something that was far away that he might be. Then by then he'd be caught up.
Yeah, I mean,
You've signed up for something, I know. I can't remember what it was at this point in time. I can't remember what Lisa signed up for either.
emergency response team is one that we should for sure look at. And responses to First Amendment assemblies, probably together, because ERT is who they send out to throw gas at people who are...
Should we do that one? Do you want to?
Sure.
Really interesting that use of force in the Chicago guidelines
Mm-hmm.
must have supervisors' permission or authorization, that's the better word, to use OC.
Like in advance?
Yes.
Just generally? Hi, it's Wednesday. I was thinking of macing someone today.
Unless you have a very specific incident, you have to get supervisor's authorization to deploy OC.
You're talking about at a crowd.
No.
Oh, just
Oh,
generally
really?
spraying
Wow.
liquid Jesus?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I didn't get to the part of, well, what's their
Rationale.
what's their intermediate step then? Is it the taser then instead of the OC? Do they see OC as more of a problem?
Stuff is
No.
useless, man. All you do is you spray the person, everyone within a 20-foot radius, plus every cop that's now rolling around on the ground with him. Everybody gets maced, and it does absolutely nothing to people that are drunk, crazy, or high, which is the ones that you're spraying with it anyway.
Well, that might be that they supplanted one for the other.
It might be. I was just doing a quick review today.
I just never found it to be particularly useful.
I turned it off.
Okay.
Thought maybe you were going to stream the Green Bay game from
Oh, you want it the replay?
Yeah.
I don't have it. I don't have the replay.
Beth, when do you go off the board? Are you going to re-up?
I am rolling off. January will be my last meeting, and I think I'm officially off.
Are you
The end of
going to
January.
re-up, though?
I can't afford it.
Okay.
I'm 260 hours this year so far spent on
keeping
this
track.
stuff. Well,
Oh, wow.
I
Yeah.
track hours for my clients, so I just
Okay.
put in as a client.
Oh, gosh.
260 hours, and at $275 an hour that I'm not earning, I look at our firm's bottom line and I know exactly where it went. So, yeah. Besides, at this point, I got to come in and be the bad guy that everyone's pissed at, and then someone else can take over and be nicer and hopefully get more
Well, I think we
cooperation.
need to use your remaining time well.
Well, and that's why I've been meeting with counselors to try
Yeah.
and get
Okay.
support around the budget thing in particular.
Okay.
Some of this other stuff we can work out as long as the office has sufficient funding. No money, no mission.
Okay, but the emergency response team comes up for the review on, November 8th, 16. But it's in January 17th, 17. Okay, so you will still be around?
Yeah, so I can work
Okay,
on ERT,
okay.
take a look at it.
Okay. It is 1-46, in case our helper, Diane, doesn't know its number.
And what's the number for,
The hostage suicide,
no,
firearms ammunition,
yeah.
that's 222.
And 343 is actually relief of duty.
That's
Change the
what?
number, relief of duty, according to
As
the
in
website.
getting fired.
As in,
What was the First Amendment gathering thing?
Well, 343 is the complaints, and that is until,
yeah, see, 343 is listed as complaints there, but at least according to the listing here, it's relief of duty, which is basically officers who are unable to, like fitness for duty kind of policy.
release of duty. is
Yeah, look
here.
at the First Amendment, 319. Okay.
Okay.
NCIC status?
We talked about that at the last meeting, right?
It's on.
We
here.
did.
Yeah.
Um,
I just,
No real updates, except we do have a couple of cases that will be testing this new system.
oh, good, already.
No, I don't believe either one of them involves sworn officers, however.
Somebody
Their
besides
personnel.
sworn officers are running NCIC?
Yes,
Dispatchers and that?
yes. Allegedly.
Awesome. Duh. Now them they'll prosecute. They sometimes come down way harder on civilian employees than
Yeah,
other
I
officers.
know, I've heard that.
Yeah, you look at the discipline for a dispatcher for
Mhm.
saying something rude, and it's practically caning, and an officer says something, and it's like, well, whatever.
Okay, Beth, I have you 222, 146. And are you going to do 343?
I'm doing
dash 40?
319.
Oh, 319. Oh, First Amendment, yeah.
Mhm. What was 343?
That was the release of duty?
No.
No, yeah. Okay. Can't remember what you signed up for. I'll let you know. Anything else? We're testing a new system for NCIC. All right.
No, not as, no.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You want
You wanna
I
adjourn?
move to adjourn?
Yes, I think that would be a good plan.